A truck driver was driving in Colorado when he said his brakes failed and he ended up causing a massive crash which killed several people. For this, he has received 110 years in prison. Now, I've been looking at this story and I feel like something is off about it. Since the beginning, when I read it, I'm like, how did they give a guy 110 years for a car accident? But you know what? This is the reality of how the law works in this country. If you are driving your car and there is a mechanical failure, yeah, you'll find yourself going to prison in many circumstances. And it's kind of crazy that's the case. Well, now in Colorado, or I should say around the country, there's a massive boycott of Colorado. Truckers are refusing to drive through the state, and they're demanding that this driver be granted clemency, granted, as it were. Here's a story from the Daily Mail. Moment. Long line truckers boycott Colorado over the state's 110-year sentence for driver who caused fatal accident. Petition to grant clemency attracts 4 million signatures. Now, the reason this is such a big deal, there's already a trucker shortage. Of course, depending on who you ask, they'll tell you there isn't one, there is one. It's actually a pay problem. And the reality is there is a trucker shortage. There's also an issue with jammed up ports. And I feel like everything's getting really, really bad. And there's just people desperate to maintain this facade that everything's fine. And it'll be better than ever. Just let it all keep going and don't pay attention. But no, I think we're on track for something really, really dark. And I think this is another big part of it. The Daily Mail reports viral TikTok videos claim to show a long line of truckers who are boycotting Colorado, driving around it and refusing to enter the state over the 110-year jail sentence of a fellow driver who caused a huge crash that killed 4 on a Colorado interstate. Rogel Aguilera Medeiros, 26, was driving a semi on April 25th, 2019 down Interstate 70 in Lakewood, Colorado, when he crashed into 24 vehicles, including 4 other semi-trucks stuck in rush hour traffic. The impact caused a fireball explosion that incinerated cars and trucks and killed 4 people. According to TikTok videos, fellow drivers are now refusing to enter the state as a way to denounce the sentence they've deemed harsh and unfair. Quote, they've just offered me $5 the mile to go to Colorado. You know what I told them? No trucks to Colorado. Let's show the entire country what us truckers can do when we stand together. You know what I really find fascinating about truckers? They got balls. And the reason I say it's fascinating is because cops don't. I should say what I find fascinating in general is that truckers have balls and cops don't. How often do you hear cops saying things like, no, I won't, I'll just do what I'm told. Well, they told me I have to do it. Don't blame the cops for arresting people and shutting down businesses. Truckers are outright like, I don't want your money. We're going to stand together and we're not going to allow this. And there you go. They're going to win because of it. This dude shouldn't be in jail. What these truckers are saying is that if you drive in Colorado and your brakes fail, you'll go to prison. I find that funny. I find it funny because it's true, but I find it funny because in Minnesota, when, Kim Potter, she shoots Dante Wright in an accident, she says, I'm going to prison. You're damn right you're going to prison. And each and every one of these cops could have stood up and said no. And therein lies the big problem. They don't care. They don't care. And so good, you go to prison. And I hope she does. If you understand that none of the people in your city want you there, they don't support you, and in fact, they're sabotaging you, but you insist on defying the will of the people, well, that's too bad, isn't it? Now, I know maybe it's a little contradictory. My point is, I do not appreciate people who refuse to stand up for what's right. I believe police are a fine institution. The problem right now is cops blindly do what they're told without principle. If we had police officers who operated on principle, this country would be incredible. They wouldn't just arrest some kid and destroy his life for no reason. They would respect the Constitution, but they don't. So I'm not going to have any sympathy for these officers. When truckers are showing us they can do it, when truckers are showing us they will do it, but the poor baby police officers won't. Why am I going to? Now, I'll put it simply. Look at this community of people. They're saying we will stand up for what's right. We will stand up for what we will believe in. We will defend our own. And what do the police do? The police are like, well, we're being sold out. And you know what? We'll arrest the cafe owners and then give Black Lives Matter and Antifa exactly what they want. Now, see, that's the worst of the worst. Sorry, that's just true. Like I was saying, I think a lot of the hype around cops and police brutality is overblown. I believe there are a lot of problems with the police department, but the biggest problems are that they are spineless and unwilling to stand up for what's right. Think about these drivers who are telling their companies, screw off. And cops can't do that? Think about what that means. It means truckers are willing to do what's right for some reason more so than cops are. And cops are more willing to just screw with you and do as they're told, the banality of evil. How about that? They say, although the videos have gained traction in recent days, the Colorado Motor Carriers Association said on Friday they were not aware of serious attempts of a boycott. Now, I think it's fair to point out it might not be every single trucker everywhere, okay? But it is some truckers saying these things. And I will also add, when you have 4.2 million people signing a petition to grant clemency, or I believe it's what do they want to do? They want clemency. It's 4.5 million signatures on a petition for clemency. You have to imagine a decent amount of those are truckers, right? Probably. TikTok videos show dozens of trucks lined up on the side of the road and blocking highways with drivers refusing to enter the Centennial State. U.S. truck drivers are not going to Colorado. No more drivers to Colorado. We are sorry. We are standing with Roger. Another video showing more trucks blocking traffic was captioned, "We need to stop the country to show Colorado we are drivers, not killers." You see, isn't it amazing that they're willing to engage in nonviolent civil disobedience? Now, I will add, it is frustrating. I remember when I was a kid, we were driving down the highway. I think we were coming back from Minnesota to Chicago or something. And there were some truckers who were side by side in a 2-lane highway, and they were going like half the speed limit to block everybody. And they were doing it in protest. I can respect the protests. Well, we were in a Jeep, so we easily drove around them, and they couldn't do anything about it. But I can respect the protest. I can. And a lot of people don't like it, right? Because when I see these far leftists standing in the street holding up signs, a lot of people are saying things like, you can't block the street. That's a violation of someone else's rights. And I'm just like, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. If the line we accept as a society is that some people will engage in serious destabilization, but nonviolent and temporary, I will accept a bunch of hippie leftists, truckers, or anybody really standing in the street holding a sign, creating an inconvenience for which they will be arrested for, if it means we can avoid large-scale physical conflict, because you need some kind of pressure release valve. But make no mistake, you'll be arrested. The dude, I covered that story earlier where the guy goes into the Cheesecake Factory, he goes in the Panera, he gets arrested. I think he should be arrested. I really, really do. I also think more people should engage in nonviolent civil disobedience and challenge these unjust laws, or it's not even a law, it's a decree in New York. The reason I think the guy should be arrested is that he's trespassing. The problem is the police shouldn't be enforcing it, the stores shouldn't be enforcing it, but he is trespassing. So I believe if you engage in nonviolent civil disobedience, trespassing, you get arrested for it. And you stand up for what you believe in, and we create that space. It's kind of like an overlap of what's acceptable and kind of what's not, because the alternative is a bunch of psychopaths like Antifa smashing up windows and throwing Molotovs through windows. That's not a good thing. They go on to say, many supported the protest in the comment section of the videos. Others believe it was an extreme measure that could affect the food supply. Yeah, it can. Quote, as a driver of over 30 years, I have to agree with the sentence. Our job as professional drivers, first and foremost, is to keep the public safe. However, Greg Fulton, president of the Colorado Motor Carriers Association, told ABC News he hasn't seen concerning evidence of a boycott. I'm not seeing really anything that's showing up that boycott in terms of companies missing shipments or other things like that. Yeah, bro. Sometimes it's micro, not macro. Sometimes what we're seeing is a line of a couple dozen truckers in protest. Couple dozen truckers in protest does not mean that every single trucker everywhere is protesting, but this is a manipulation in my opinion. Not always. This guy could just be dumb, or they're like, does it really count as a boycott if it's only 50 truckers? Yes, it does. Okay? Just because you've got 10,000 or whatever more who aren't engaging, it doesn't mean there's not a significant protest happening. It's just a protest. Fulton said that he feels bad for the driver. While he feels for the driver, calling the crash a mechanical failure, as the petition states, is incorrect. I think in our eyes is experience, a lack of familiarity with the driver of the mountains. I don't think the company should have put them in the situation, he said. It was an accident. They go on to say, on December 13th, Aguilera Medeiros of Texas was sentenced to 110 consecutive years in prison by County Court Judge A. Bruce Jones, who said his hands were tied due to mandatory minimum laws in the state. He sentenced Aguilera Medeiros to the minimum in the range available to him on all 27 criminal counts. And how do people convict this guy? Rogel Lazaro Aguilera Medeiros, 23, has nothing on his driving record or on his criminal history. The change petition stated they're calling for clemency. The governor is the only person who can grant clemency at the state level. Polis most recently commuted 4 sentences and issued 18 pardons in December 2020. Clemency usually results in a sentence reduction or a pardon. He had complied with every single request by Jefferson County courts and investigators on the case. There's the post from the petition. He's passed all of the drug and alcohol tests that were given, including a chemical test. This accident was not intentional, nor was it a criminal act on the driver's part. No one but the trucking company he is or was employed by should be held accountable for this accident. We are trying to hold the person who needs to be held responsible. The trucking company has had several inspections since 2017 with several mechanical violations. The petition goes on to say that Rogel could have done things differently to avoid the courts, but ultimately commended him for taking responsibility and apologizing to the victims' families. Some of the families even offered forgiveness. Rogel is not a criminal. It has become one of the website's top signed petitions after it reached 4 million signatures. Look, this country is run by truckers. It really is. They are the red blood cells. They are the carriers of goods and resources to the cities. If you're going to beat down someone over an accident like this, not only does it show we've got serious problems in the justice system, but you are asking for trouble at a time when there is a trucker shortage. Yo, people need to recognize you do not screw with truckers, man. One day they're going to go to their store and there's not going to be any food and they're going to ask questions about why it is. They're going to go to the politicians. I'll tell you this for the governor, for the politicians in Colorado. I long for this day. Regular people show up to their grocery stores and they say, that's weird. There's no cream cheese. Well, the cream cheese shortage is due to cream cheese shortages. But when they go in there for their humble little American vices, perhaps they would like a 6-pack of beers, and there is none. And they want to get some lunch meat and some sandwiches for the kids, and there is none. They're going to start asking questions of their politicians, and they're going to say, why is my store empty? And they're going to have to say, well, during a national pandemic, food shortage, trucker shortage, we decided to allow a trucker to go to prison for 110 years because of a car accident. And then truckers decided not to show up. When there's already so few, it will reflect on them. And you know what? Then they will be voted out. A lot of people are saying this right now about Trump, that Biden is screwing things up so royally that Trump will run as the return to normalcy candidate and he will win. Everything happening will be blamed on those politicians. Indentured servitude, low wage and grueling conditions fueling U.S. truck driver shortage. Who would want to be a truck driver right now, especially after that sentencing of this guy? Now, I'll say this too. When the story first came out about the sentencing of this guy, I immediately thought it was crazy. But I felt like something had to be wrong and I didn't know enough about it. And therein lies the big challenge. It's also why there's a lot of stories I don't cover. I couldn't imagine. This guy just crashed his truck. He's driving on the road, the brakes failed and he crashed. So they're sending him to prison for beyond his life? That doesn't make sense. The judge said that he showed, terrible decision making and things like that. And I'm like, certainly he must have done something intentionally, negligently. They said he should have taken the runaway truck route. It levels off, it goes up and then hits rocks to stop trucks from, crashing into other cars. But at the end of the day, this dude seems to have just made a mistake and been in an accident due to a mechanical failure. For that, they want to lock him up. This is one of the reasons why I say I oppose the death penalty. Not in this case. I don't think they're going to give this guy the death, he's going to get a death sentence or anything like that. But there are innocent people, and at the very least, people undeserving of prison who go to prison. And that means there will inevitably be innocent people on death row. And there's something rather nightmarish about the thought that there is an innocent person with 2 cops on either side carrying him to his death by choice. And they don't know and they don't care, but they believe he's guilty. They don't care if he's innocent or not. And this person could beg and scream and say, I'm innocent. And they say, yeah, they all say the same thing. But there are people who are innocent, who are wrongly convicted. And then the likes of Kamala Harris, people like her, are the ones who gleefully laugh as they flip the switch, pull the lever, or do whatever to kill an innocent person. Kamala Harris. They had DNA evidence, her office, that they didn't want to review that would have exonerated an inmate on death row. Could you imagine being locked up for your life over something you know you didn't do wrong? And worse still, the state says, we have the evidence, but we're going to kill you anyway. So I'm not in favor of the death penalty because I don't trust people like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and whoever else. I don't trust any of them. They're going to come to you and they're going to say this, trust us. That person harmed a child. And you're going to say, done, kill him. And then what happens when you find out 5-10 years later they lied about that? What happens when you find out later that it was a Julian Assange or a Kyle Rittenhouse? They say, trust us. This young man killed or shot 3 people, killing 2 of them. He deserves death or life in prison. And you say, well, I don't know enough about it, but sure, kill him. Yeah, sorry, I'm not playing that game. Because there's always a chance, unless I personally witnessed it, the state is lying. Just like Binger lied. Just like Kamala Harris lied, and they would kill people because of it. I don't like bad people. I don't like child abusers. I don't like serial killers or anything like that. I don't like any of these people. And to a certain degree, I think that they're a harm to themselves or to society. They should be locked up. And if there is no way to truly contain the person and they are a persistent threat, then I do believe in self-defense, the person forfeits their life. If they are attempting to cause great bodily harm to somebody else or to you. But what happens when you have them locked in a steel box? Well, even then, I say it is better. It is better that we keep the person locked in a steel box than we kill an innocent. Now, this person's not innocent. I'm saying we know definitively, but we've subdued them. It's hard to know when someone's lying, when the state does not have good intentions, and when they actually just want to be cold, callous individuals who want to get a notch on their belt towards a promotion. Like Kamala Harris, who kept people in prison beyond their potential parole because they wanted slave labor. Yeah, they wanted to pay $1 an hour to fight wildfires. That's what they do. Or when, like I said, she wanted to keep someone on death row, her office didn't want to review the evidence. I can't make a definitive end to someone's life when I know the state does these things. Now we have a story of a man who's going to be in prison for 110 years, and as far as I can tell, over a car accident. This is the problem with the justice system in this country, is that it's evolving into a retribution system, outright, just pure retribution and callous exploitation. That's why I've said before, the current prison system as we know it should be abolished. We should still have a prison system. It basically means the way we have these maximum security facilities, it's not doing anything for anybody. We're putting people in prison. They're becoming hardened. This guy going to prison makes no sense. Justice is not being served over this. What we need is rehabilitation facilities. And there should be giant steel boxes for which we put people in forever. Violent criminals, many of them, should probably be locked up for a lot longer than they already are. And nonviolent criminals and offenders should be locked up a lot less. For the most part, it should be an attempt at rehabilitation, except for the worst of the worst. For people who would abuse children or in other ways violate and harm children, they get the worst of the worst. Lock them in a steel box. For murderers and evil people who we've subdued and they're no longer a threat, you lock them in a steel box and you do it forever. And then for less serious offenses, manslaughter, passion crimes, and things like that, we recognize we want to try and help people and fix the problem. Otherwise, the problem with executing the innocent and imprisoning the innocent, and I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who had talked about this, and probably many other founding fathers. If the citizens of a country feel that the government will unjustly imprison or execute them, then they have little incentive to cooperate with the system. They have little incentive to believe in it. They have little system to engage with it or support it or otherwise. In which case, if people feel that the state is killing or imprisoning the innocent at high rates, they will revolt against it, or they will just lose confidence in it and the government itself will collapse. The people need to know that if something happens, we will come to a fair and just outcome. What is this? Well, they're going to make the problems worse. They're going to make the pandemic worse. They're going to make the shortages worse. They're going to make the trucker shortage worse, supply chain crisis worse. And some guy who got in a car accident is going to rot for the rest of his life. And from all of this, truckers are protesting. Man, I will say this too, because maybe I'm a little harsh on the cops. A lot of cops quit. Tons of police officers quit over the unjust mandates that they refuse to enforce. And not every trucker is protesting, but a lot are. So I can respect that across the board. If you as an individual are willing to stand up and say no to whatever injustice you're facing, nonviolent civil disobedience, that's the way to do it. Absolutely. So for the officers who said, I'm not going to enforce that, I quit, turned in their badge and their gun, those are heroes. To the truckers who are saying, we will not support this, they're heroes. Everyone else, it's the banality of evil. To sit back and watch everything decay and burn and do nothing about it. But I'll leave it there. There's a lot going on, and this is just one piece of it. Next segment will be coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast, a different channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.